Welcome, 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 everybody. I am so glad you decided to join us tonight for our update. We are roughly 40 or 39 days away from the election. So mobilization and what we are going to do during the election. Virginia is already started early voting. I voted yesterday, is becoming increasingly more important. So thank you for choosing to spend your evening with Center for Common Ground. I really enjoy having you join us. So people who've been with us for a while know we run a number of campaigns. There's the Reclaim Our Vote campaign. We have our intern program, Students for Justice. In 2020, we ran a billboard campaign. Not sure how extensive a campaign we're going to be able to run this year. Vote Equality Tour is running, and the RBG is already in Georgia. And we've got our Democracy Center campaign. The mission of Center for Common Ground is a very simple one. It is our goal to empower underrepresented voters. And by that, we mean BIPOC voters, Black, Indigenous, people of color in voter suppression states, and they know who they are, to engage in elections and advocate for their right to vote. Our special guest tonight is Deepak Puri, one of our board members, who is the co-founder of Dem Labs. Our other board members, Reverend Rodney Sadler, Dr. Gabby Lemus, and Katie Ornung. Katie right now is in Savannah, Georgia on the RV. So I think what I'm going to do, since screen share is not behaving properly, is I'll talk you through some things and then show you others, because Zoom is having a bad day. That's all right. Now, we have been working on postcarding. Nancy, do you want to go through postcards since I've got the numbers up?
Yes, we're currently writing to 8 states, but we're pretty much done with Virginia. We're sort of done with Georgia, close to done with Arizona. And we're really working intensely on North Carolina, Texas, and Florida. We have a lot of addresses to send, and we just launched Alabama and South Carolina. If you do want a postcard, contact your regional organizer, because we set that up by where you live, not where you're postcarding to, but where you live in the country. We have people all over the country that can help you connect to postcarding, and we'll put that link in the chat. But we sent 1.5 million, almost 1.4 million postcards for the primary, and we sent more than 1 million postcards so far for the general election in November. Probably we'll be sending maybe up to another 1 million in the next month and a half. Most of these postcards aren't to be mailed yet, except for Virginia. The mailing dates are going to always be about a week before early voting starts in that state. So the mailing dates are anytime from October 13th on through, October 25th, because Alabama, we're going to mail them late. We don't even have any early voting in Alabama. Do pay attention to the mailing date. We don't want to write those postcards and send them to people right away before their early vote starts, because then they're going to lose it. They'll forget about it. It won't be top of mind. So we wanted to get there shortly before early vote. And generally, every single postcard says, here's are the big issues for your state based on what we have talked to the people on the ground, the partners on the ground that Andrea works with in that state, BIPOC community organizations. And we say, these are the issues in the state. Here's how you can find out more. Vote early, avoid the long lines, bring friends with you. And so it's a very nonpartisan message, not telling them how to vote, but telling them where to get information and when to vote.
All
So it's a
right.
lot of fun.
Oh, great. And with that, I want to add a special note about Florida. Probably everybody knows that a good part of Florida has been devastated by Hurricane Ian. Florida is a huge state, so the entire state has not been that negatively impacted by the hurricane. Of course, the areas where the hurricane made landfall, the areas that are oceanfront, those areas have received a phenomenal amount of damage. The postcards are not to be mailed to Florida until October 10th at the earliest. So if you have Florida postcards, please go ahead and keep writing. Hurricanes are very movable objects, and it is on the way to Georgia. So again, people will be mailing your postcards by between October 10th and 20th. Hurricane Ian will be long gone. The devastation will be there, but people will be in recovery mode. I come out of emergency management, and Ian is one of those interesting hurricanes that is moving over land. It has gone down from a category 4 hurricane, nearly a category 5, to, for a while, it was down around a category 1, which is a big, really annoying storm. But it is over land. It is not out in the ocean, pulling water back in with it. So again, the election is not going to wait. Write your postcards, hold them until the mailing date, and then mail your postcards. I will do a little update on texting. We are almost done with Virginia. Texting in Virginia was extremely limited. The big bulk of texting will begin right around October 5th. That will be Georgia, North Carolina, followed by Arizona, Florida, Alabama, and then Texas. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Zoom is really having a bad day. Let's see if it will let me stop sharing. And then Gabe, I've got your phone bank information up next. So Gabe, do you want to do phone banking? Let me take a look at those slides. There we go. All right, I've got the right slide up for you. Again, Zoom being Zoom doesn't bother me. It's like I'm having a bad day. So let's present. There you go.
Yeah, that looks good. Yeah, with Florida, we're going to hold out on putting the phone banks up just due to the storm. Um, but we have a phone bank going into Pima County, Arizona. So Virginia, Georgia, Texas, and Arizona are all ready to go right now. Um, so they're all on our website, centerforcommonground.org/phone banks, which I'm putting in the chat right now. And we need callers. We have lots of phone banks. We have lots of counties to go into. Early voting has already begun in Virginia. So tell everyone. Also, we know now to a greater degree than we used to about the efficacy of voicemails. Leaving voicemails is incredibly powerful and makes a real difference on how many people vote. So you can explain to people if they're on the introverted side, that can be a selling point. that a lot of these voter contacts are just going to be leaving voicemails on people's phones, and they're going to listen to it later. So that's how you can reel them in, and then hopefully we can keep them and keep them calling so we can get out the vote in all of these voter suppression states.
Thanks, Gabe. And on October 6th from 4 to 6 p.m., there will be a phone banking and canvassing training for introverts. And what I will do is I will drop that link in the chat. So we don't worry about if we cannot get the voter on the phone. If they have a voicemail, we leave them a message. And as Gabriel said, we found that we can drastically increase turnout with those voicemail messages because we are not trying to sell anything to voters. We are giving them information. And Gabe, in Georgia, we're going to probably start getting more rural phone banks up. The folks on the ground in Georgia are getting really, really concerned about rural Georgia, specifically southeastern Georgia. So just wanted to pass that along. So what I'm going to do now, since Zoom is having a bad day, is I'm going to go ahead and introduce our special guest, Deepak Puri. Back in 28, I approached Deepak and said, when people have a problem with voting or with something election related, when they call the 866 hotline number, there's no ability to send them a picture of what you saw, because everybody, when we go to vote, we normally have our phones with us, and there's no ability to show a video, and we, the public, never hear about what went on in states unless it was incredibly egregious. So we don't really have a true feeling for what kind of problems and how many were we really seeing at the various polling locations. So what we've done since 2018 is roll out an updated version of See Something, Say Something, where we actually generate a map of these are the problems that people had voting, and this is where they happened. So Deepak, go ahead and take it away, sir. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Andrea. So thanks for everyone for joining us. So let me just kind of go back in time and explain. This was Andrea's idea, and it started, as you can see, back in 2018. The idea was, how can we get people to share problems that they're seeing while they're trying to vote? So to kick this off, I'm going to show you a 1-minute video, and you'll recognize some of the people in the video very shortly. So this kind of gives you an introduction, and then we'll kind of go into it and explain it in more detail. Can you see my screen? Yep. Okay, here we go.
Yes.
Thousands more say they've tried, but have run into problems and have nowhere to turn. Now they do. Around the country, would-be voters are having problems, whether it's long lines.
We've been here 8 hours.
Or ballot issues. Matson is campaign director of CSA 2020, a new website collecting reports of allegations of election irregularity, ballot issues, voter intimidation, poll problems, and so on, to create a national database displayed virtually.
It's all right in your hand. If you've got a phone with you, take a picture of anything relevant. It goes straight to our volunteers. They check that record for just basic credibility.
Co-designer of the site, Andrea Miller.
People have been told, go out and disrupt the elections. That's illegal. That is against the law. You cannot interfere with some person's right to vote.
Reports are posted, creating a heat map highlighting voter challenges. Red are ballot issues, yellow are allegations of voter intimidation. Someone in New York claimed this guy outside a polling place made them feel intimidated. It's hoped that this information, there for the world to see, spurs action.
Everyone should have CSA 2020 in their hand so they can feed this database.
Some of these problems we will be able to fix beforehand. Others will be evidence of why we need to change the rules of how we vote.
The CSA 2020 team says it has roughly 300 lawyers on standby to help resolve voters' issues where possible.
You know, my wife's like, what'd you do?
Oops. All right, so with that as background, what we did was, and if you think about it, how does CSA work? So some of you are probably familiar with Waze. Waze is this application. If you're driving along and you see something happening, you can report it and it shows up both for yourself and for other drivers. So we use the same approach to create CSA 2020, which is people can report issues right away, and the app basically takes it and goes in and shows it on the map. So let's show you, if you went to CSA2020.com, this is live. Anyone can go to it. And this is what happened 2 years ago. Each of these dots represents a particular incident that was reported. So for instance, if I look at Georgia, I click here and it basically shows me everything in Georgia. And I can go in further and we've got it color coded. So if I said, show me all the problems around ballots, polling places, and so on. So I'll just say ballots. And you guys can do this on your own. It's all live. So here, all the details are there and they show up over here. So if I say, what happened here? What it does is it kind of goes in and it gives me all the details. And if there's a photo or a video, that shows up as well. So it's super simple. You see something going on, which, you know, it shouldn't be happening, and you can report it right away. It comes into a central database, and then it shows up on a map. The whole thing happens within seconds. And just to kind of give you a preview, this is what the form looks like. It's CSA2020.com. You don't have to install anything. You just download the link either on your phone or your laptop. You fill in what happened, and we're going to do this live just to show you where it happened, when it happened, and if you have any photo or video, it shows up. The reason why this is important is we want to collect information that you're seeing right away and bring it to the attention of the authorities and the press so people can do something about it. So let me just stop there for a second and just to kind of recap. Anyone can report an issue. You don't have to install anything. What you report is immediately goes to the cloud, and it's shown there for people to see. Now, like Andrea mentioned, the details of the person who reported it are not shown publicly. And the other thing which we found was, in case you're at a situation and it's threatening, you don't have to be there right there and then doing it on your phone. You can just take a quick snapshot and move away, go around the block, go home, And there you can kind of fill in the rest of the details. But the privacy of the individual is, protected. Obviously, the people on the back end, like Andrea and the team, they have access to it. But if, say, for instance, there's a reporter and the reporter wants to know what is happening in Fulton County, and they see on the map, like, 5 people have complained, with the appropriate authorities, Andrea can share that information. Here are the people who reported these issues. Let me just stop there for a second. Andrea, do you want to add anything before I go on?
No, that's just fine.
Okay, so now let's kind of walk you through, say, for instance, you've never used this before, and the new link that we've created, obviously here, I'm going to start sharing my screen again, it's now CSA2022.com. No big surprise there. So the old one is still working, but if you go to here, I'm going to do it right now live. So it's CSA2022.com. And you'll see a screen like this, which is very similar to the old one. And over here, I put in some test cases. But for instance, if I click on this dot here, it tells me what's going on. So let's pretend together that we want to report an issue. And so you'll notice, if you downloaded CSA 2020, you don't even have to download it. You just go to that website URL and it'll be there. So this first thing that shows up is what kind of issue are you encountering? So let's just say I'm having trouble checking in. And what you'll notice is when you pick one of these buttons, the categories underneath it change. So if it's misinformation, what is the nature of the misinformation? So I'll just pick one, voter check, and I'm having trouble checking in. It says that, the address is incorrect. And how urgent? It's very urgent. I want to vote, but there is a problem with my name on the list. So you can type in a brief description. And then for location, let's pick Andrea. So give me an address. Someone give me an address. All right, I'm just going to say Fairfax, Virginia. So what you'll notice is it kind of immediately zoomed in. I could either have put in a full address, but let's just say I want to see where, and I can zoom in, put the problem right. It's happening on School Street and High Oak Lane, right there. So I put the dot where the incident I saw. You'll notice I don't have to be there. I could be home now, but I saw it on my way back from voting. And where did this take place? I'll just say Fairfax voting booth number 234. And then state. Some of these fields are optional, others are mandatory. Now, in case I have here's Virginia, when did it happen? It happened a little while ago. If I have a photo, I could take a photo or upload it. If I have a little video, I can do that. And let's just say this was reported by Andrea. And your phone number, this is optional, but in case someone wants, like a reporter wants to speak to you later. So your email address, group code, and I'll say, oh, this was through Center for Common Ground. But say, for instance, you might have NAACP, you might have the League of Women Voters and so on. So it's helpful to put that in because if we know you're with a group, later on you can run a report for all the people who belong to that organization. So that's it. You'll notice what I did was I reported the problem, I described the details, I explained how urgent it is, what it was, where it happened, when it happened, and so on. I hit submit. Oh, city. All right, that's all there is to it. And what you'll notice is, so Andrea's and other people are on the back end. So here's the map that goes with it. So that's different than where we entered it. But what you'll notice is if I go into Virginia and I now want to click on it, the details show up right away. See this? And there was another incident, hypothetical one. But so the point here is we want to make it super simple. You can share this link with any number of people. Obviously, it's free. Encourage them to report issues that they see. They all bubble up and they're on this map. The map helps draw attention to what's going on. And a couple of things. It's immediate. You have your privacy protected. And the other thing is, when we're not trying to, we're taking into account that there'll be people putting in rubbish in there. It's a fact of life. So on the back end, we'll need volunteers who can periodically go in and scrub any nonsense, right? There are enough jokers out there. There's nothing we can do to prevent that. But we want to collect valid information and filter out any nonsense. And the whole idea is, in this way, the more people we have out there reporting issues that they see, the better. So, Andrea, let me turn it back to you, or if anyone has any questions, I don't know what the right format is.
Oh, all right. Well, if you've got any questions, please feel free to drop them in. Yes, we did have a few, but very few troll reports in 2020. And again, that was the job of the volunteers on the back end when people put in absolute nonsense to, in 2020, we didn't post it to the map. So my question for you, Deepak, for 2022, are we posting everything to the map and then deleting junk? Or are we reviewing everything and making sure only good stuff goes on the map? We can do it either way.
Yep, we can do it either way. This time around, we thought we'll post it and then kind of filter afterwards for two reasons. Okay. Yeah, but we can do it either way. That's
all right. So again, our experience in 2020, we did not have that many troll reports. So that's one of the reasons we decided, or that we'll just let everything go to the map. We'll look at it, and if there's something that's goofy, we'll remove it. The reports do not necessarily go to law enforcement. If something urgent is occurring, it normally goes to the group that is responsible for election protection in that area. So everybody knows the big election protection groups: the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, the NAACP, Legal Defense Fund, and Common Cause. Again, if there is something so urgent that law enforcement is needed, people should really report it to law enforcement first. There's a guy with the gun. Don't tell us, get law enforcement out there, and then tell us later. And there was a guy with a gun at the polling location. We are not the first people you notify. We are further down on that list.
Yeah, a couple of points I want to share is like and I should have pointed it out, when you click on the app, in there's a phone number which says this is the Lawyers Committee phone number. and it says like, if you see something dire, like Andrea just mentioned, call them. Don't put information here. It's kind of like, when you call a hospital, they say, if it's an emergency, call 911. Don't, spend more time here. So that's one. The second thing which we found really valuable is if there are people, like I'll give you two specific examples from 2018 and 2020. In 2018, what we found, someone reported in Mississippi, the police had put up these barricades around a polling location. Go figure. And as a result, no one could drive up there, and someone reported it. And what happened was, who's the lady who does This Is Not a Game, that TV show? So she has quite the Twitter following. So if there are people who are social media influencers, so she immediately tweeted out, what kind of nonsense is this? And she included a photo of what the voter had reported. And so that basically got the attention really fast. And the police kind of took down the barricades. That was one example. Another one that someone reported was someone had put up the voting location inside a gated community. Can you believe that? I think this was in Alabama. So you either had to drive in, go through security to get to the voting booth. And if you didn't have a car, that was even worse. So what happens is people report these issues and you can draw attention to it, because the problem is everything happens so quickly and the press wants to get news about reports, but they have limited number of reporters. If I'm covering, say, voter interference in Georgia, how am I going to collect information about interesting stories, where to send my camera crew? So if we can crowdsource or collect information and examples for them, saying, guys, over here, this is happening, over there, that's happening. And then what they can do is dispatch their people to where it needs the most coverage, or people are active on Twitter and Facebook, and they can see stuff and highlight it to their folks. So there's different ways to bring attention to this issue, and that's what this tool is supposed to be. Andrea?
Oh, and one of the comments I was working on in the chat was there were a couple of really, really great ones. One question was, do we expect an uptick in false reports this year? And the answer on that is no, I don't think we're going to get that many more false reports, even though I do think we're going to get an uptick in real voter intimidation and various other kind of incidents. There was another question: how are we letting people know about see something, say something? Well, a lot of people found out about it in 2020. In 2020, we bought more than 250 billboards, and it was on every billboard that we had. We do not have funding this year to buy billboards like we did in 2020. So we'll use some social media push. We're talking to state tables, we're talking to election protection groups, and we're talking to just our volunteers. We're also talking and making presentations to our faith groups, because many of our faith leaders are organizing faithful poll watchers, where we'll have ministers, rabbis, imams out at the polls in their clerical garb. So again, God doesn't like ugly.
Yep. One other thing that we've seen from the January 6th report, which is having your photo connected to something bad that you did can have severe consequences. And as a result, if people know that they're going to be volunteers out there taking pictures or videos of, the bad behavior that they're doing, that should have a deterrent effect as well. One of the examples I heard was from a Native American reservation. What had happened was a policeman or a sheriff had come onto the tribal lands and was standing next to the voting location. And that is illegal and improper on so many fronts. But what had happened was he was basically scaring away people from voting. So someone took a picture of that guy and reported, what is this sheriff doing here on our tribal lands? And the fact that people know that, they could be reported, whether or not anything happens, hopefully that also has an effect. And the thing is, this information that's reported is stored and saved so that, just the fact anyone can go back and look at what happened in 2020, it also becomes an archive for future action. So that's what we're trying to do. Back to you, Andrea.
Yes. And again, I was involved in the chat with Chuck. Again, if you see something going on that looks untoward, again, none of us go anywhere these days, especially to vote, without our trusty phones. Take a picture, shoot a video, and that's why we named the program. If you see something, say something. You can call the 866 hotline, and while you're waiting for them to answer the phone and transfer you to the right place, you could be making your report with your picture on see something, say something.
Great. All right. Thank you again.
All right. Yes. And another note in the chat. There are, unfortunately, this year, and this is going to be very different than 2020, there are many election deniers who are actually now election officials. The other side is very, very organized in everything that they do. So when they decided that the 2020 election was stolen, they figured out a way where they could perhaps legitimately steal the 2022 election, and that would involve them basically being a major part of the election infrastructure, being poll workers and slowing down people's ability to check in and or to vote, sending poll monitors that aggressively question whether people are citizens or whether they're residents or whether they should have the ability to vote. We have a new governor, and I've noticed the Virginia State Board of Elections website is now broken, where you could normally use the website and say, I would like to get a vote by mail ballot. When you go on that website now, it says you're going to need your driver's license number and some other thing that you really don't need. So we're going to see people trying to mess with elections at all levels of authority. And again, when we see it, we have to report it. We are a 501c3 by law. We cannot work directly with the Democratic Party per se, but there is nothing stopping the Democratic Party from, in their election protection room, having a copy of See Something, Say Something up on one of their screens. So, a great question, Matt. Great question. So, yes. All right. Well, Deepak, that was great. Do we have any other questions? Because if we don't, I've got one more announcement about what we are going to be doing next week. We will be getting together again. So let me share my screen. Our Alabama folks will be with us. All right, this really not letting me do what I want to do. My window won't move. Talking about mobilizing Black voters in Alabama. Our Democracy Center East Rent will be with us, along with Karen Stanley, who's the voter outreach coordinator from the Alabama links. And I am going to drop that link in the chat for you as well. So hopefully we will see you next week. And in Alabama, they will be canvassing. They'll be doing on the ground canvassing. They're already doing some postcarding, and they will be doing phone banking. And what is really, really important about the work that our democracy centers are doing, and it's very, very exciting, is democracy centers are local people in our focus states that are doing the work, with the whole idea being that if we can get local people working on not only election protection, but GOTV, then that means we're going to be able to go into other communities. So the old, if you give a man a fish, you're going to have to keep giving them a fish. But once people learn how to fish, then they're going to be able to stand on their own. And that is really what our democracy centers are doing. So Alabama in 2022 could deliver a surprise, just like Alabama did in 2017. And we will be talking about that next week. So thank you all for joining me. I'm going to do one last call for questions. It looks like we are good. Yay. So what I'm going to do is turn off the transcription and let's turn off the recording.